pure devotee. There are many instances of this in the revealed scriptures. Durga Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj and many other devotees were able to see the person of Godhead face to face apparently in the same body. This means that the quality of a devotee's body changes from material to transcendence. That is the opinion of the authorized Goswamis by the authentic scriptures. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that beginning from the Indragopa germ up to the great Indra, king of heaven, all living beings are subjected to the law of karma and are bound to suffer and enjoy the fruitive results of their own work. Only the devotee is exempt from such reactions by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Authority, the Personality of Godhead. Text 29. Kalpantailam adaya shayami Namasyat Pudadvatam Shisaishur Amipranam Vibrishikar Amapidu. At the end of the millennium, when the personality of Godhead Lord Narayan lay down within the water of devastation, Brahma began to enter into him along with all created elements, and I also entered through his breathing. Narad is known as the son of Brahma, as Lord Krishna is known as the son of Vasudeva. The personality of Godhead and his liberated devotees like Narad appear in the material world by the same process. It is said in Bhagavad Gita, the birth and activities of the Lord are all transcendental. Therefore, according to authorized opinion, the birth of Narad as the son of Brahma is also a transcendental cosmic. His appearance and disappearance are practically on the same level as that of the Lord. The Lord and his devotees are therefore simultaneously one and different as spiritual entities. They belong to the same category of transcendence. Verse 13. Sasrayuga Bhajante Udayegam Sishikshata Marichi Vishra Vishaya Pranibhyo Cha Janjali. Translation. After 4,300,000,000 solar years, when Brahma awoke to create again by the will of the Lord, all the rishis like Varichi, Angira, Atri, and so on were created from the transcendental body of the Lord, and I also appeared along with them. The duration of a day in the life of Brahma is 4,320,000,000 solar years. This is stated also in Bhagavad Gita. So for this period, Brahmaji rests in Yoga Nidra within the body of Garvada Sai Vishnu, the generator of Brahma. Thus, after the sleeping period of Brahma, when there is again creation by the will of the Lord, through the agency of Brahma, all the great rishis again appear from different parts of the transcendental body, and Narad also appears. This means that Narad appears in the same transcendental body, just as a man awakes from sleep in the same body. Sri Narad is entirely free to move in all parts of the transcendental and the pure creations of the Almighty. He appears and disappears in his own transcendental body, which is without distinction of body and soul, unlike the conditioned beings. Next, 31. Antar Mahishcha Lokam Stin Varyam Yas Nakdida Amrata Anugraha Mahavishnu Abhidhatagati Vachit. Translation. Since then, by the grace of the Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in the three conditions of the material world. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, there are three divisions of material spheres, namely the Urdhva-lok, topmost planets, the Madhya-lok, the midway planets, and Adhamulok, downward planets. Beyond the Urdhva planets, or the Urdhva-lok planets, that is to say, above the Brahma-lok, are the material coverings of the universes. And above that is the spiritual sky, which is unlimited in expansion, containing unlimited self-illuminated Vaikuntha planets inhabited by God Himself along with His associates, who are all eternally liberated within entities. Sri Narada could enter all these planets in both the material and spiritual spheres without restriction, as much as the Almighty Lord is free to move personally in any part of His creation. In the material world, the living beings are influenced by the three material modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. But Sri Narada Muni is transcendental to all these material modes, and thus he can travel everywhere unrestricted. He is a liberated spaceman. The causeless mercy of Lord Vishnu is unparalleled, and such mercy is perceived by the devotees only by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, the devotees never fall down, but the materialists, such as the fruitive workers and the speculative philosophers, do fall down, being forced by their respective modes of nature. The rishis, as above mentioned, cannot enter into the transcendental world like Narada. This fact is disclosed in the Shikha Purana. Rishis like Marichi are authorities in fruitive work, and rishis like Sanaka and Sanatan are authorities in philosophical speculations. But Sri Narada Muni is a primary authority for transcendental devotional service of the Lord. All the great authorities in the devotional service of the Lord follow in the footsteps of Narada Bhakti Sutra, and therefore all the devotees of the Lord are unhesitatingly qualified to enter into the kingdom of God. Next, 32. Devadatam imam dhinam swara bhamma vibhulashikam Vachayya harikatam gaiman charapaham. Translation. And thus I travel constantly singing the transcendental message of the glories of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called a veena, which is charged with transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna. The musical string instrument called the veena, which was handed to Narada by Lord Shri Krishna, is described in the Linga Purana and is confirmed by Sri Goswami. This transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Shri Krishna and Narada because all of them are the same transcendental category. Sound vibrated by the instrument cannot be material, and therefore the glories and pastimes which are broadcast by the instrument of Narada are also transcendental, without a tinge of material inability. The 7 singing meters, namely Sha, Shadya, Ra, Vishva, Ga, Gandhara, Ma, Padhyama, Pa, Panchama, Dha, Dhyavata, and Ni, Nishada, are also transcendental and specifically meant for transcendental songs. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Sri Narada is always fulfilling his obligation to the Lord for his gift of the instrument, and thus he is always engaged in singing his transcendental glories, and is therefore infallible in his exalted position. Following in the footsteps of Sri Narada Muni, a self-realized soul in the material world should also properly use the sound meters, namely Shara, Dhamma, and so on, in the service of the Lord by constantly singing the glories of the Lord as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Text 33. Pragayata swalvirvayami dirghapada piyashvala ahurvaiva mudis sidram darshanam vyapti chaitasi. Translation. Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart as if called for, as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities. Purport. The absolute personality of Godhead is not different from his transcendental name, form, pastimes, and the sound vibrations thereof. As soon as a pure devotee engages himself in the pure devotional service of hearing, chanting, and remembering the name, fame, and beauties of the Lord, at once he becomes visible to the transcendental eyes of the pure devotee by reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart by spiritual television. Therefore, a pure devotee who is related with the Lord in loving transcendental service can experience the presence of the Lord at every moment. It is a natural psychology in every individual case that a person likes to hear and enjoy his personal glories enumerated by others. That is a natural instinct. And the Lord, being also an individual personality like others, is not an exception to this psychology because psychological characteristics visible in the individual souls are but reflections of the same psychology in the absolute Lord. The only difference is that the Lord is the greatest personality of all and absolute in all his affairs. If therefore the Lord is attracted by the pure devotee's chanting of his glories, there is nothing astonishing. Since he is absolute, he can appear himself in the picture of his glorification, the two things being identical. Srila Narada chants the glorification of the Lord not for his personal benefit, but because the glorifications are identical with the Lord. Narada Muni penetrates into the presence of the Lord by the transcendental chanting. Text 34. Vidāyam puracitam citanam matra sparshe chayam bhavasindhu bhavodishto haricharyanuvaranam. Translation. It is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desired contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of omniscience on the most suitable goal, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of God. Fourth, the symptom of a living being is that he cannot remain silent even for some time. He must be doing something, thinking of something, or talking about something. Generally, the materialistic men think and discuss about subjects which satisfy their senses. But as these things are exercised under the influence of the external illusory energy, such sensual activities do not actually give them any satisfaction. On the contrary, they become full with cares and anxieties. This is called Maya, or what is not. That which cannot give them satisfaction is accepted as an object for satisfaction. So Narada Muni, by his personal experience, says that satisfaction for such frustrated beings engaged in sense gratification is to chant always the activities of the Lord. The point is that the subject matter only should be changed. No one can check the thinking activities of a living being, nor the feeling, willing, or working processes. But if one wants actual happiness, one must change the subject matter only. Instead of talking of the politics of a dying man, one might discuss the politics administered by the Lord himself. Instead of relishing activities of the cinema artists, one can turn his attention to the activities of the Lord with his eternal associates like the gopis and Lakshmis. The Almighty Personal Godhead, by his causeless mercy, descends to the earth and manifests activities almost on the line of the worldly men, but at the same time extraordinarily because he is Almighty. He does so for the benefit of all conditioned souls, so that they can turn their attention to transcendence. By doing so, the conditioned soul will gradually be promoted to the transcendental position and easily cross the ocean of omniscience, the source of all miseries. This is stated from personal experience by such an authority as Sri Narada Muni. And we can have the same experience also if we begin to follow in the footsteps of the great sage, the dearmost devotee of the Lord. Text 35. Yamadi yoga bhaktai kamalova mato vimo mukunda sevaya yadva tadhatmadha samyati. Confession. It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses, by the yoga system, one can get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust. But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul, for this satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the personality of God. Wherefore, yoga aims at controlling the senses. By practicing of the mystic process of bodily exercises in sitting, thinking, feeling, willing, concentrating, meditating, and at last being merged into transcendence, one can control the senses. The senses are considered like venomous serpents, and the yoga system is just to control them. On the other hand, Narmuni recommends another method for controlling the senses in the transcendental loving service of Mukunda, the personality of Godhead. By his experience, he says that devotional service to the Lord is more effective and practical than the system of artificially controlling the senses. In the service of the Lord Mukunda, the senses are transcendentally engaged. Thus, there is no chance of their being engaged in sense gratification. The senses want some engagement. To check them artificially is no check at all, because as soon as there is some opportunity for enjoyment, serpent-like senses will certainly take advantage of it. There are many such instances in history, just like Vishwamitra Muni's fallen a victim to the beauty of Menaka. But Apollonidas was allured at midnight with the well-dressed Maya, and still she could not induce that great devotee into her trap. The whole idea is that without devotional service of the Lord, neither the yoga system nor dry philosophical speculation can never become successful. Pure devotional service of the Lord without being tinged with fleeting work, mystic yoga, or speculative philosophy is the foremost procedure to attain self-realization. Such pure devotional service is transcendental in nature, and the system of yoga and dhyan are subordinate to such a process. When the transcendental devotional service is mixed with a subordinate process, it is no longer transcendental, but is called mixed devotional service. Srila Vyasadeva, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam, would gradually develop all these different systems of transcendental realization in the text. Text 36. Sarvam tadidam apyatam yad prishtoham tyaja vayamagam janma karma rahasyam me bhavatascha. Translation. O Vyasadeva, you are free from all sins. Thus, I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization as you asked. All this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction also. Purport. The process of devotional activities from the beginning to the stage of transcendence is all duly explained to satisfy the inquiries of yesterday. Narad has explained how the seeds of devotional service were sown by transcendental association, and how they gradually developed by hearing the sages. The result of such hearing is detachment from worldliness. So much so that even a small boy could receive the death news of his mother, who was his only caretaker, as the blessing of God. And at once he took the opportunity to search out the Lord. A sincere urge for having an interview with the Lord was also granted to him. Although it is not possible for anyone to see the Lord with unveiled eyes, he also explained how by execution of pure devotion, by execution of pure transcendental service, one can get rid of the fruitive action of accumulated work, and how he transformed his material body into a spiritual one. The spiritual body is alone able to enter into the spiritual realm of the Lord. And no one but a pure devotee is eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. All the mysteries of transcendental realization are duly experienced by Narada himself. And therefore, by hearing such an authority, one can have some idea of the results of devotional life, which are hardly delineated even in the original text of the Vedas. In the Vedas and Upanishads, there are only indirect hints to all this. Nothing is directly explained there, and therefore Srimad Bhagavatam is the mature fruit of all the Vedic trees of literatures. Text 37. Sita Uvacha Evam Sampasya Bhagavan Narado Vasavi Sukam Amantriyagudam Karunaya Yayo Yadishchiko Muni. Translation. Sutta Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Srila Narada Muni took leave of him, and by breaking on his veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will. Purport. Every living being is anxious for full freedom because that is his transcendental nature. And this freedom is obtained only through the transcendental service of the Lord. Illusioned by the external energy, everyone thinks that he is free, but actually he is bound up by the laws of nature. A conditioned soul cannot freely move from one place to another, even on this earth, and what to speak of one planet to another. But a full-fledged free soul like Narad, always engaged in chanting the Lord's glory, is free to move not only on earth, but also in any part of the universe, as well as in any part of the spiritual sky. We can just imagine the extent and unlimitedness of his freedom, which is as good as that of the Supreme Lord. There is no reason or obligation for his traveling, and no one can stop him from his free movement. Similarly, the transcendental system of devotional service is also free. It may or may not develop in a particular person even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. Similarly, the association of the devotee is also free. One may be fortunate to have it, or one may not have it even after thousands of endeavors. Therefore, in all spheres of devotional service, freedom is the main fiber. Without freedom, there is no execution of devotional service. The freedom surrendered to the Lord does not mean that the devotee becomes dependent in every respect. To surrender unto the Lord through the transparent medium of the spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life. Text 38. Aho deva shetanyoyam yat kirtim sharngam danvata gayam madyan idam tantya ramatyatyakulam jagat. Translation. All glory and success to Srila Narada Muni because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead. And so doing, he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. Report. Sri Narada Muni plays on his instrument to glorify the transcendental activities of the Lord and to give relief to all miserable living entities of the universe. No one is happy here within the universe, and what is felt as happiness is Maya's illusion. The illusory energy of the Lord is so strong that even the hog who lives on filthy stool feels happy. No one can be truly happy within the material world. Srila Narada Muni, in order to enlighten the miserable inhabitants, wanders everywhere. His mission is to get them back home, back to Godhead. That is the mission of all genuine devotees of the Lord, following the footsteps of that great sage. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 6th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Conversation Between Narad and Vyas. Now, chapter 7, text 1. chapter 7, entitled The Son of Drona Punished. Next one. Shunako Vacha Nirgate Narade Sutta Bhagavan Badarayana Suttavam Stat Avipretam Tatakim Akaroduhu. Translation. Rishi Shonak asked, O Sutta, the great and transcendently powerful Vyasadeva heard everything from Sri Narada. So after Narada's departure, what did Vyasadeva do? In this chapter, the clue for describing Srimad Bhagavatam is picked up as Maharaj Parikshit is miraculously saved in the womb of his mother. This was caused by Drauni, or Aswatthama, Acharya Drauna's son, who killed the 5 sons of Draupadi while they were asleep, for which he was punished by Arjuna. Before commencing the great epic Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Vyasadeva realized the whole truth by trance in devotion. Text 2. Sutta Vacha Brahmanadhyam Shrastutyam Ashrama Pasimekate Samyakasayati Bhakta Shinam Satya Vardhana. Translation. Sri Sutta said, on the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is intimately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation at Samyapras, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages. Purport. For spiritual advancement of knowledge, a suitable place and atmosphere are definitely required. The place on the western bank of the Saraswati is especially suitable for this purpose. And there is the ashram of Vyasadeva at Samyapras. Srila Vyasadeva was a householder, yet his residential place is called an ashram. An ashram is a place where spiritual culture is always foremost. It does not matter whether the place belongs to a householder or a mendicant. The whole Varnashram system is so designed that each and every status of life is called an ashram. This means that spiritual culture is a common factor for all. The brahmacharis, the grihastas, the vanaprasthas, and the sannyasis all belong to the same mission of life, namely realization of the Supreme. Therefore, none of them are less important as far as spiritual culture is concerned. The difference is a matter of formality on the strength of renunciation. The sannyasis are held in high estimation on the strength of practical renunciation. Text 3. Tasmin swashrame vyaso vadari shandamandite asino pavakas isya prani datyao manaspayam. Translation. In that place, Srila Vyasadeva, in his own ashram, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. Under instruction of his spiritual master, Srila Narada, Vyasadeva concentrated his mind in the transcendental place of meditation. Text 4. Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranete male apasyat purusham purnam ayam chatat apasmayam. Translation. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. Perfect vision of the absolute truth is possible only by linking process of devotional service. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. One can perfectly realize the absolute truth personality of Godhead only by the process of devotional service. And one can enter into the kingdom of God by such perfect knowledge. Imperfect realization of the Absolute by the partial approach of impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma does not permit anyone to enter into the kingdom of God. Sri Narad advised Sri Vyasadeva to become absorbed in transcendental meditation on the personality of Godhead and his activities. Sri Vyasadeva did not take notice of the effulgence of Brahman because that is not absolute vision. The absolute vision is the personality of Godhead, as is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. In the Upanishads also it is confirmed that Vyasadeva, the person of the Godhead, is covered by the golden glowing Hiranmayena Patrina veil of the impersonal Brahman. And when that curtain is removed by the mercy of the Lord, the real face of the Absolute is seen. The Absolute is mentioned here as the Purush or person. The Absolute Personality of Godhead is mentioned in so many Vedic literatures, and in Bhagavad Gita, the Purush is confirmed as the eternal and original person. The Absolute Personality of Godhead is the perfect person. The Supreme Person has manifold energies, out of which the internal, external, and marginal energies are specifically important. The energy mentioned here is the external energy, as will be clear from the statements of her activities. The internal energy is there along with the Absolute Person, as the moonlight is there with the moon. The external energy is compared to darkness because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. The word apashraya suggests that this energy of the Lord is under full control. The internal potency or superior energy is also called Maya, but it is not spiritual Maya or energy exhibited in her absolute realm. When one is under the shelter of this internal potency, the darkness of material ignorance is at once dissipated. And even those who are atmaram or fixed in trance take shelter of this maya or internal energy. Devotional service or bhakti yoga is a function of the internal energy. Thus, there is no place for the inferior energy or material energy, just as there is no place for darkness in the effulgence of spiritual light. Such internal energy is even superior to the spiritual bliss attainable in the conception of impersonal Brahman. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that the impersonal Brahman effulgence is also an emanation from the Absolute Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The Param Purush cannot be anyone except Sri Krishna himself, as will be explained in the later shlokas. Text 5. Yaya samohita jiva atmanam vigunatmam paropi manate ratam yat kritam Shabit translation. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental of the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product, and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. The root cause of suffering by the materialistic living beings is pointed out with remedial measures which are to be undertaken, and also the ultimate perfection to be gained. All this is mentioned in this particular verse. The living being is by constitution transcendental to material engagement, but he is now imprisoned by the external energy, and therefore he thinks himself one of the material products. And due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the smoke, under the knowledge of materialization. The living entity misunderstands himself to be a material product. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under the material conditions is not natural for him, but he has his normal way of thinking, feeling, and willing. The living being in his original state is not without thinking, willing, and feeling power. It is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is now covered by nescience. Thus, the theory that a living being is absolute impersonal Brahman is refuted herein. This cannot be because the living entity has his own way of thinking in his original unconditional state also. The present conditioned state is due to the influence of the external energy, which means that the illusory energy takes the initiative while the Supreme Lord is aloof. The Lord does not desire that a living being be illusioned by external energy. The external energy is aware of this fact, but still she accepts a thankless task. She accepts a thankless task of keeping the forgotten soul under illusion by her bewildering influence. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energy, because such performances of the illusory energy are also necessary for the formation of the conditioned soul. An affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet he puts his disobedient children under the custody of a severe man, just to bring them into order. But the all-affectionate Almighty Father, at the same time, desires relief for the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of illusory energy. The king puts the disobedient citizens within the walls of the jail, but sometimes the king, desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and pleads for reformation. And on his doing so, the prisoners are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of the illusory energy, and personally gives relief in the form of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein he personally suggests that although the ways of the illusory energy are very stiff to overcome, one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. This surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusory energy. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by the influence of the speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the Supreme, conditioned souls are engaged in his transcendental loving service. They get a taste for hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only are they gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment for the Lord. The whole thing is completed by the surrendering process. Herein also the same suggestion is made by the Lord in his incarnation of Yasadeva. This means that the conditioned souls are being reclaimed by the Lord both ways, namely by the process of punishment by the external energy of the Lord, and by himself as the spiritual master within and without. Within the heart of every living being, the Lord himself, as the super soul, becomes the spiritual master. And from without, he becomes the spiritual master in the shape of scriptures, saints, and the initiator's spiritual custom. This is still more explicitly explained in the next short. Personal superintendence of the illusory energy is confirmed in the Vedas, the King Upanishad, in relation to the demigods controlling power. Herein also it is clearly stated that the living entity is controlled by the external energy in a personal capacity. The living being thus subject to the control of the external energy is differently situated. It is clear, however, from the present statement of Bhagavatam that the same external energy is situated in the inferior position before the personal Godhead or the perfect being. The perfect being or the Lord cannot be approached even by the illusory energy, who can only work on the living entities. Therefore, it is sheer imagination that the Supreme Lord is illusioned by the illusory energy and thus become a living being. If the living being and the Lord were in the same category, then it could have been quite possible for yesterday to see it. And there would have been no question of material distress on the part of the illusory being. For the Supreme Being is fully cognizant. So there are so many unscrupulous imaginations on the part of the monists endeavor to put the Lord and the living being in the same category. Had the Lord and living beings been the same, then Srila Sukadeva Goswami would not have taken the trouble to describe the transcendental aspects of the Lord, for they would all be manifestations of the illusory energy. Srimad Bhagavatam is the sum of remedy for suffering humanity in the clutches of Maya. Srila Vyasadeva therefore first of all diagnosed the actual disease of the conditioned souls, such as their being illusioned by the external energy. He also saw the perfect Supreme Being, from whom the illusory energies are removed. Though he saw both the diseased conditioned souls and also the cause of the disease. And the remedial measures are suggested in the next verse. Both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living beings are undoubtedly qualitatively one, but the Lord is a controller of the illusory energy, whereas the living entity is controlled by the illusory energy. Thus, the Lord and the living beings are simultaneously one and different. Another point is distinct herein, that external relation between the Lord and the living being is transcendental. Otherwise, the Lord would not have taken the trouble to reclaim the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. In the same way, the living entity is also required to revive his natural love and affection for the Lord. And that is the highest perfection of the living entity. Srimad Bhagavatam treats the conditioned soul with an aim to that great goal of life. Okay, so we continue on. Text 6. Jai Shri Gurudev Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Darshana Bhakti Swami Prabhupada.